giant package that could really push forward both the human and transportation elements of infrastructure that will all be subject to negotiation throughout these upcoming weeks. Lindsay?
All right. Thank you so much, Amanda Golden. We appreciate it.
Okay, now to the new developments that we have this morning in the Capitol insurrection investigation. And one of the accused rioters had an interesting defense for his actions. According to his lawyer, Anthony Antonio, you see him there, developed Fox-itis and Fox mania from watching too much Fox News after losing his job during the pandemic. His lawyer also saying his client believed former President Trump's narrative that the 2020 election was rigged, the big lie. Antonio is charged with 5 federal crimes, including violent entry, disorderly conduct, and destruction of government property. He has not yet entered a plea in this case. Well, joining us right now, criminal defense attorney Sarah Azari and investigative reporter Scott MacFarlane with NBC station WRC in Washington. Scott, I want to start with you. Great to see you. You have been following this and all of these hearings really closely. According to the court filings, Antonio threatened police officers, poured water on some of them, and a lot more. What do we know about his role in the attack?
Hey, Candace, good morning. 440 U.S. Capitol riot defendants. Each of these cases we're watching has its own eccentricities and its own twists and turns, and we haven't seen anything like we've seen in the case of Anthony Antonio. He's from Illinois, and the feds say he was on that front line, that first wave of insurrectionists on January 6th. But what his defense attorney said during an initial appearance this week really stands out as unique, making acknowledgments that Antonio had been politicized ahead of January 6th. As you mentioned, he was unemployed during the pandemic, according to his attorney, and during that time he lived in a home with other men. And the attorney says those men watched a lot of Fox News. And his attorney said, yeah, he suffers from Fox-itis, Fox mania, and that he had been politicized ahead of January 6th. That's quite an acknowledgement. We haven't heard defense attorneys have that kind of discussion with judges in any of these prior hearings. It's interesting, Candace, if that's planting the seeds for a coming defense.
I know they check courthouses for a lot of things. I don't know if they have a filter for BS, but I'm curious with that. Sarah, so Fox-itis, I looked it up in Urban Dictionary. It says it's a state of being psychologically and emotionally manipulated by a major news source with ulterior motives, usually political in nature. You're the lawyer here. Is that a legit defense?
Right. Hi, Candace. Look, the short answer is no. Fox-itis versus Trump-itis is a difference with no distinction. We've heard multiple writers come into court at different proceedings related to the January 6th attack saying that Trump made me do it. And in this case, Fox News, spread the words of Trump and encouraged me to do it. And so defense attorneys throw everything at the wall and hope that something sticks. This does not stick. We've already heard the judge rule on this before, that the idea of third-party culpability is not before the court. And this is because the federal statute for incitement of insurrection does not require that one intend to incite. It simply requires that one incites. And so as the reporting that we just saw established, Mr. Antonio threatened Capitol Police. He poured water on an officer. He got a hold of a riot shield and a gas tank. He entered through a shattered window and began throwing furniture around. This is ample evidence of his conduct of incitement of insurrection. And so while neither Trump's nor Fox News's conduct is before the court here, where this will matter is if and when Donald J. Trump is brought to justice for his words leading up to the attack. It's going to be very difficult for him to claim free speech because now we have ample, impeachment evidence from all these rioters that they listen to the direction and instruction of a sitting president.
And Sarah, quickly here before we get back to Scott on this, has this been successful before, this sort of brainwashing defense?
No, they've never used Fox-itis, but they have used Trump mania and Trump-itis, or what I call Trump-itis. The idea that Donald Trump encouraged me to do this, and that's why I did this. And so Fox, is state TV, like you described. It is an extension of Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump's platform and still is and has been for 4 years. So the idea that his platform disseminated this direction or instruction coming from the sitting president at the time is no different than what the president had said.
All right, Trumpitis, Foxitis, there's got to be some sort of over-the-counter pill that we can take for that. Scott, to you, there are also some details on some of the 440 people who were arrested in connection to the riots. What do we know?
Two cases I'm watching real closely this weekend, Kenneth. One is Lonnie Kaufman. He's accused of having Molotov cocktails in his red pickup truck on Capitol Hill January 6th and firearms. In a revelation in court yesterday, the judge says there's also evidence of a possible handwritten note in that truck, a note with the names of public officials and of judges. She's ordered the court or the Justice Department to hand over those notes, that list of names, before deciding whether to release Kaufman pending trial. The other case is Eric Munchell of Tennessee. He's been called the zip tie guy, accused of being with his mother in the U.S. Senate with zip tie handcuffs. He was originally jailed pending trial, but he appealed it in what's really a landmark case in these insurrection hearings. He was released from jail to home detention because the judge says there's no evidence he was violent that day. But one caveat of the home detention is that he can't contact other riot defendants. His mother is another Capitol riot defendant, so he's asked the court formally this weekend for permission to call his mom on Mother's Day, Candace.
Because, of course. Scott MacFarlane and Sarah Azari, we're going to leave it there. Thank you guys so much.
The doctors manning our front lines in the pandemic are pulling double